Have you ever been to Germany?
I've not. My dad actually goes all the time.
Yeah,
though,
if you get a chance, I went to Dresden recently. Well, not recent, but like last year. Even Berlin, actually. I remember I went to the eastern side, the former eastern side. You could see the glaring contrast between the.
I've heard that before. So it's like when you go, like there's legitimately a line of separation where you can even see just architecture and like how everything.
Yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
And then even the building heights too, because the eastern side of Berlin is their apartments are rather low, like height wise, compared to the western side. And then I remember because we went through Dresden to get to which country was it? Poland or no? Anyways, Czech. So because we drove through Dresden to get a Czech. I remember in Dresden, because there was the post-war and then under the Soviet occupation for a while, I remember it just had a gloomy feeling to the city.
Yeah, most of Eastern Europe.
Yeah. And then I experienced the only other place I had that experience was in Cuba.
Really?
Yeah.
When did you go to Cuba?
2015 or 2014.
What were you down there for?
Just vacation.
Just vacation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was born in China, but when I was young, we had already gone through the reform and opening up for 20 years. Or 10 years actually. So by that time, you could see the country was developing, but Cuba was it was a shock to me because it was real communism. It was just little huts. People were like you could be a doctor and not make enough money.
Yeah, I hear taxi driver.
Taxi driver, you make more money. Yeah.
So
crazy.
I get that's actually interesting. What was the feeling, I guess, for people from China, like you, especially your parents in that situation, grew up with communism, and there's so much fluctuation in that word. But going from there to Cuba, how different is communism between the two countries, especially with the open up period? And then I guess what is Cuban communism if we're kind of comparing the two?
I think for anybody that's lived through the 70s in China, the 60s in China, they would probably have a different interpretation of communism than the Western, because today people in the United States and other countries, they really embrace, they're saying that they kind of equate communism, socialism with equality and, this whole equity situation, right? But the communism that my grandparents grew up with and lived through, the Cultural Revolution, all these, it was just their lives were in danger, either from starvation or being seen as, this branded as a traitor, and then obviously you get sent to the countryside and all these things. Your livelihood was on the line, right? And then when I saw that in Cuba, because I'm much younger, when I was born, there was no more political movements in China, right? Because Mao had died. This was 15 years after Mao's death. So all that's gone in China. But when I went to Cuba, the reason why I kind of confirmed my grandparents' experience was because you had people begging for money. You had soldiers that were when you go through the airport customs, there would be an officer dressed in military uniform, and they had really basic equipments like a webcam, take your photo, check your passports and all that. When you go outside into the airport, there's police guard. They're not even police. I think there's just the military there guarding all of the stations, and everything was so backward. Because at that point, I had lived in Canada for, I think, 15 years or 11 years. I'm really bad with my math. But the point is, I grew up, my childhood in Canada until, I went to Cuba was very much, I had forgotten about what had happened in China, what happened to my parents, grandparents. But then when I went to Cuba again, that's when I remembered, this is actually real life for people. Because Cuba under the regime, the communist regime for a while, I think they never got through what China had, right? Same thing I think happened with North Korea as well. They never went through the post, what happened in China after Mao died, which was, growth. And you had this whole accession into the World Trade Organization and all that in the 90s. And so they never went through that. So they really left behind that purebred communist way in a sense. So and really that was the moment that I thought to myself, this is real. This is because I think, and this is why I'm critical of the whole embracing socialism aspect here in the West as well, because people that actually believe that socialism works either have never been to a country that went through communism or refuse to believe that there is actually these kind of countries around the world still. And Cuba was the one that really confirmed my belief that communism is real, in a sense that it really destroys people's livelihood. And it was eye-opening, I guess, in the sense that you feel like, because you took a plane from a first world country, right? And then flew a few hours across the ocean, and you get to this place. It's like you almost stepped into another dimension. The people there, it's like they live in a whole different world. The people were super nice too, right? But it's just the government was so bad that it was unreal to me, seriously. And this is somebody who comes from a country that went through this. And so when people really talk about communism, I tell them that, stop reading what's being preached by the textbooks and the professors. And actually, if you want to learn about it, if you get the opportunity, go visit. Obviously, don't go to North Korea. You'll probably never come back.
Yeah.
But, Cuba for Americans might be a little bit hard, but if you're from another country, you should be able to. But you look on the other side, Vietnam is a great example of, even though they're still technically communist, they're in that process of what China went through for the reform and opening up. So they're really walking out of that. So I think that they're less about the ideology now, more about the actual concrete growth, which was China. Pretty much, I guess, our focus today is what happened before Xi Jinping arrived. Right now, Xi Jinping, obviously, he's taken everything back, and so we're going backwards. But before that, it was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that too. The people that love to tout communism or socialism today, when they look at countries, they'll maybe look at Vietnam or China and try to point towards certain successful aspects. And we'll go into today. There's plenty of negatives and whatever it might be, but easy enough. You can find some great attributes and stuff. It's usually when you're on the reverse arguing against it that you're pointing towards some of the historical examples. So Mao, Stalin, where it really goes wrong.